All right, everyone, I just want to show you how to go from your organizer onto the databases at Wilson Middle School and the way I'm going to ask you to report the information that you find. So at this step in the project, you should already have your essential question developed. So you've chosen a topic and you've thought about ways in which that can be open to research, and it's something that you're not too familiar with, and it's also something that you're interested in. So since I'm the librarian, I'm going to be looking at how does children's literature inform students about the environment. And I think this is important. I think the environment is something that's been in the news a lot lately with some other issues. And I'll talk about the way in which I'm going to plan my research out about that when we go down to 3 follow-ups. Thinking of some follow-up questions is nice because it kind of directs your ideas into the research that you're looking for. And it's just one way of focusing your essential question into something, that might be a little bit more specific, or maybe an area that you're interested in focusing on based on your particular wants, needs, desires, whatever you're looking for. So is this a useful medium for learning about the environment? Are books the best for talking about these issues that affect our environment? How important is this topic compared to others? And there are a lot of other topics in children's literature, and I've just named a few of them there. And then, which are the best books to buy for the library? So, one question at the top there is kind of an evaluation question. Is this the right kind of thing to focus on this topic? The next one is probably going to be pretty hard to answer in the timeline that I'm giving for this class, but it definitely shows that I'm thinking about this issue. And then the third one is very concrete, which are the best books for the library. So the research that I conduct will just allow me to, you know, buy something and use it within the space that I work in. So then I came up with a few keywords that I think would be appropriate for searching in the database for this. So environmentalism is kind of being conscious about nature and thinking about man's effect on it. Children's literature, young adult literature, and the idea of an eco-catastrophe is something that I came across when I was looking at books like The Hunger Games and Divergent, and even Harry Potter to some extent. A lot of these books follow a model where there is some kind of hero who has to save some kind of world, and a lot of times those worlds have gone through an eco-catastrophe, meaning the environment has changed drastically, and the young people are kind of motivated to do something about it. And one other key word I'm going to look in here is middle grade, because you guys are in middle school, and children's literature is a very broad term. So I put young adult in here to kind of talk about books that I would get for 7th and 8th graders, and then middle grade are books that I would get for 5th through 8th grade. That kind of encapsulates everything. So those are just some terms that I know, but I think would be good keywords. So this box here is mainly what I want you guys to focus on for this video. So when you're looking at your organizer, you will see a box that looks like this, and it's got 3 main parts: my own words, notes, and the source citation. And the reason I've done this is that so you can come up with, something like 3 quotes. Sometimes I'll map them out for myself just to, give myself an idea of how much I need. But that's not to say that you might find more than 3. And these notes are going to be copied and pasted from a source that I find. In my own words, I'm going to take the notes that are over here on the right side, and I'm going to link them together into a paraphrased paragraph. So I might change some of the words into my own to convey the ideas that I find in the notes, or I might directly quote the source. And then importantly, down below, we're going to cite the source in this box right here. Okay, so where do I go once I know that I have all this stuff? Well, if you click on Finding One, it takes you to our database page. And any organizer you get from me will have that link in there. And the one to focus on is going to be middle school in context up here in the top left. Now, high school edition is, for people who don't go to middle school. But at the same time, it's just a wider database. So you may find yourself in this high school one. If you can't find stuff here, you guys are welcome to use that one as well. Power Search cross-searches every database in our catalog, so that's a huge, huge wide net that's going to be sent out there. So I wouldn't recommend starting there. I'd recommend starting at middle school in context. But also, I'm relatively familiar with environmentalism, so I don't need to go into World Book or Britannica. But these two encyclopedias are very simple and they're going to have very basic articles on things. It's not going to have an article, for example, on environmental children's literature, but it might have an article on children's literature and environment. But to start, I want to show you the way that these databases work and why they're such powerful tools to do research. So when you're looking at this screen, I would always jump over into advanced search. You can even do this on Google, and it's usually a good idea to add in specific keywords that are going to help you to get to a more specific topic, or else sometimes you're going to be swamped with results and not know where to start. So I'm going to pick my first two keywords, children's literature and environmentalism, and I'm going to put them in. And the database will give you a list of search terms that come underneath it. It's a little different than Google's autocomplete. What this will do is it'll put quotes around it, and it basically is telling me the database likes that word. It's appended that or stapled it to one of the articles inside. And then the other one was environmental. Ism. Here we go. So I'm going to do this searching both for the keywords, and it's going to return articles that have both of these keywords in it. Let's see what happens. All right, so I didn't get a lot of hits for this, but maybe that's okay. Maybe the database was able to return back kind of two perfect little things for me. So now I'm going to go through the results, and I'm just going to do a quick skim and scan to see if anything is useful for me. So I can see that the title of this article is Isolated from Nature. It's from a magazine called The American Scientist. It's a brief article. It's from June of 2012, and it gives me the opening of it, which says, children learn about society's values in many ways, including reading kids' books. Okay, so that opening sentence means that this is pretty good for me, actually. I'm going to see what this article at least has to say, all right? But take the next one down here, just as an example. This is a really long essay. We can say that it's about 11,000 words. It's from 2016, so it's a little bit more recent than that last one I just said. And it says, Brian Doyle's much-noted emphasis on environment provides a rich entry point into his multi-award-winning corpus. Interesting. So Brian Doyle seems to be this focused writer, I'm assuming, right, in the novels and papers. And he's something that I could look back to maybe as a possible source a little bit later. So I'm going to keep this in mind, Brian Doyle, right? I might write it down somewhere. I could even put it in my organizer right here and just, make a note for myself. Actually, because it's not going to be in my first finding, I'm going to do that first one first. I'm going to put it up there too. Just make a note, Brian Doyle. And this document is mine. It's not the final result of what I'm going to present to my inquiry community. So I'm going to keep this here, and it's perfectly fine. Doesn't mean it's messy or anything like that. It's your note sheet, so you can do that. So if I click on Isolated from Nature, this is a really powerful screen that you're looking at. There's a lot of different tools to use in this whole thing. So we have that information that I checked out earlier, that it's from 2012, it's from the American Scientist, and then we have the article itself. So I'm going to read through this real quick, and I'm going to take a look if there's anything that's useful to me in it. I did like that first sentence, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight that one. Numbers are always important, so I'm definitely going to keep that. Okay, cool. So I've read through this, and I'm just going to make sure that I understand exactly what this is that I read again. I know it because I took a look at the beginning and I saw that this was going to be something that was useful for me, but let me just make sure what this is here. So, okay, so I've got an article from the American Scientist from June of 2012, and it was just a brief article, and it says, Williams J.A. Jr. et al., The Human Environment Dialogue in Award-Winning Picture Books, Sociological Inquiry, 82. Oh, okay, so this is interesting. This down here actually is the study that this stuff actually came from. However, this is a smaller version of the actual study. Obviously, all this information is probably written up in many more pages, you can see. page 145 to page 115 of this journal, Sociological Inquiry. This is a professional journal that it's talking about, but this is a magazine that kind of non-professionals can read about interesting things. So I am going to talk about this as the intro to all the information that I want to pull out of this article. So the way that I do things, I'm just going to add this in here now. According to a study discussed in American Scientist in 2000 and what was the year again? 2012. Okay. I'm going to use that sentence starter because this is the whole source that I'm using. So I figure, why not? So next thing I'm going to do is discuss this here. Paste this into my organizer. It's going to be my first note. All right. And do the second one. And it's always good to paraphrase after you've read the article. So you can kind of do these things one at a time and then take a break. I like to say that you need to find 3 sources for this paper, but sometimes it'll be hard to find the source, and other times you might find one immediately. Actually, I got pretty lucky here. And once you find it, you can just you can just work on that one, and then it's sometimes a good idea to take a break because you really want to focus all your reading power, that active reading power, into this one article. And this seems like it has just a little bit of information, but the nice thing about this is that I can talk about my own thoughts and my own interest in getting into the research for this whole thing. So I have my notes. This article was about children's books, obviously, and what was going on when they did this study. So sociologists were reviewing and examining books, and they were looking at the pictures in them, and they kind of tracked illustrations. And then they made some conclusions in the bottom here that I highlighted in blue. So I've got all that here. So according to a study discussed in, I think it's the American Scientist maybe, in 2012, I'm going to go right to the bottom because this is an interesting finding here, okay? So the authors suggest that urbanization has the upper hand and that today's children may not learn to appreciate the natural world, at least not from their award-winning books. Interesting. So according to a study discussed in the American Scientist in 2012, I'm going to say sociologists, kind of researcher who looks at groups of people, found they didn't really find this conclusively. I'm going to use their word. Suggest that children's books do not provide an appreciation of the natural world because they depict, the books depict, urban settings. And, my audience might not know what urban means, so I'm just going to actually use city settings. There. So now I've kind of taken that over from my notes, and I've summarized it a little bit. The group wanted to look at how children learn about society's values, right? That's right in there. I'm going to paraphrase that. Learn about their society. Now, I like these numbers here. These are pretty good. So I'm actually going to copy and paste this. Control Z or Command Z will be your friend during this if you ever mess anything up and you don't want to lose your writing or your notes. I'm going to quote this directly. And I'm going to say, according to the magazine, because I'm talking about the American Scientist. All right. So I've got this idea. The group wanted to show how children learn about their society. According to the magazine, they examined more than 8,000 images in 296 books that received the Caldecott for outstanding illustrations between 1938 and 2008. And my quote jumped down. All right. And I know that this doesn't need to look perfect, but I'm just going to fix it a little bit, give it some nice formatting. And this is interesting because as far as my look at this is is I'm looking at how does children's literature inform students about the environment. So they examine more than 8,000 images. These are a lot of books, right? 8,000 images and almost 300 books. And they're suggesting that urbanization has the upper hand, right? Over here, today's children may not learn to appreciate the natural world, at least not from their award-winning books. So also, is this a useful medium for learning about the environment? Kind of answers that question a little bit too. So I can say, this study points to the idea that books are not necessarily the best medium for looking at the natural world or, nature. Now, it's just this study. That's not definitive. This is one source that I found and kind of, picked apart and looked at. But is it a useful medium for learning about the environment? I'm not passing a judgment call. I'm not saying books are the best, even though I am the librarian. I'm saying, what does the data say? What can I find? This has been great. I mean, this source is really short, but I can take a lot from it, from what I need. And it's only going to be one of my sources. So I might find something that contradicts it later. These people are sociologists who looked at it in one specific way. There might be an author who discusses how important books are, and they have a completely different point of view, and they'll be published in a completely different magazine, maybe. So that's kind of how you can combine your ideas with the ideas of someone else to make knowledge, to create new knowledge. That's what we're trying to do here. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show who helped me in the creation of that new knowledge. So show you that one more time. Up above the title of any database article, and a lot of Britannica articles, World Book articles that you use will have the same kind of button. Some websites do, but not all. I'll talk about how to cite a website for this class in another video. But you can click that. We're going to use Modern Language Association, the MLA. It defaults to that. Click Select, using my keyboard shortcut to copy and paste. And that can go right down there. So this is a nice finished step 2, and you'll see in step 3 that it asks for finding 2 and finding 3, and you have a box just like this. So I hope this video has helped you with the various ways to do things, and feel free to use this video throughout the term so you can stop and pause at different parts of the video and just familiarize yourself with the kind of process that we're going to be going through. You want to make sure you have your own words here, you want to make sure you have some notes right here, and you get your source citation. And then this will inform what you talk about for finding number 2, right? You can tell that I answered this question a little bit, so maybe I'm really going to focus on this one or this one, and that might inform a different keyword that I use. Most of all, if you're having trouble with any of this, definitely reach out to me. We can work on Google Meet when we're doing this, no matter what schooling environment we're in, and it's a really, really helpful way to utilize the librarian for a one-on-one research appointment. We can get through this oftentimes a lot faster than some of the questions you have because librarians are trained at using all of these tools that you see before you that can be overwhelming. Thank you for watching.